Welcome to Learn English Speaking. Let's Talk Stories. Here we bring you amazing stories to improve your English fluency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting lessons. Let's learn together.
Chapter 1. Checkpoint. The American gave Alec Lemus another cup of coffee and said, "Why don't you go back home and sleep? We can phone you if he comes." Lemus did not answer. He just stared through the window of the West German checkpoint. The street near the hut was empty. "You can't wait forever, sir," said the American. "Maybe he'll come another time." "He's coming," said Lemus. "It's nearly dark now." Lemus stood next to a policeman who was watching the East German checkpoint through binoculars. "He's waiting for the dark," Lemus said. "I know he is." "But he's 9 hours late," said the American. Lemus became angry. "He's an agent, one of my agents," he said. "He doesn't have a timetable. He's in danger. He's frightened. Munt knows that Karl is spying for us, and Munt's chasing him. Karl knows he has one chance to escape. Let him choose the best time." "How did Munt know about Karl?" asked the American. "Shut up," replied Lemus. And then he added more quietly, "I don't know." A bell rang suddenly inside the hut. They waited silently. High above the checkpoint, huge lamps came on, shining their yellow light on everything. The policeman with the binoculars started to speak in German. "The car has stopped at the first checkpoint," he said. "There is one person in it, a woman. The East German guards are taking her to the hut to look at her documents. The document check is completed. The car is going to the second checkpoint. The woman is going inside the hut. The guards are checking inside the car. The woman is coming out, and the barrier pole has been raised. She is driving the car over the bridge, past the final East German guard, and into West Berlin." Lemus went out of the hut into the icy winter night. The small crowd of people that was always near the checkpoint stood silently, lit by the huge lamps. The people changed, but the faces did not. They always looked helpless and confused. The car had passed the hut and stopped further along the street. Lemus had recognized the woman. He walked over to the car and spoke through the window to her. "Where is he?" "They came for him," she replied, "but he escaped. He took our bicycle. He has some money and some false documents. He said that he will come over tonight at this crossing point." "Tonight?" said Lemus. "Are you sure?" "Yes, he has to," she replied. "All the other agents have been caught by Munt." "All of them? Lenzer, too, as well as Paul, Virek, and Salomon?" "Yes." "How do you know?" he asked. "Karl told me," she replied. "He trusts me, and he tells me everything." Lemus did not reply. He was angry with his agent for talking to this woman about his work for the British Secret Service. He had met her once with Karl, who had brought her to a bar in West Berlin. Lemus had been angry that Carl had brought her to a meeting with him. Stupid man, thought Lemus. Agents are all the same. You train them to lie, to trust nobody, and to protect themselves, but they don't listen. He pulled a key from his pocket and gave it to the woman. "You'll need somewhere to stay," he said. "Go to Albrecht-Dürer-Strasse, number 28. I'll phone you when he comes." He went back to the silent hut. The American was not there. "He's gone home," said the policeman. Lemus told the policeman that they were waiting for a man on a bicycle, and then he went to the window and waited. In front of him was the road, and to either side there was the wall. It was a dirty, ugly thing, built from big blocks of rough concrete, with barbed wire on top and in front of it. "Sir, look!" the policeman suddenly whispered. "It's a man with a bicycle." Lemus recognized the man who was pushing the bicycle. It was Carl. "He's done it," thought Lemus. "He's got through the first checkpoint. There's just the second one now." Carl calmly leaned his bicycle against the customs hut and disappeared inside. At last he reappeared, got on his bike, and an East German policeman raised the red and white barrier pole. He was through. He was coming towards them. He had done it. At that moment, Carl seemed to hear a sound and know that there was danger. He looked over his shoulder and began to move faster. An East German guard was on the bridge, watching Carl as he came towards him. Suddenly, the searchlights came on, shining on Carl. Then there was the sound of shouting and a siren. The East German guard dropped to his knees and lifted his gun. The first shot seemed to push Carl forwards, and the second shot seemed to pull him back. But he was still moving, still on the bicycle, passing the guard who was still shooting at him. Then he fell from the bike to the ground. Lemus hoped that Karl Riemek was dead, so that the East German Secret Service could not hurt him when they interrogated him. Chapter 2. The Circus. The plane took off, and Lemus looked out of the window as West Berlin disappeared beneath him. Munt had won. Lemus was leaving Berlin without any agents in East Germany. There had not been any agents when he arrived in Germany, and he had recruited them all himself. Now he was leaving in the same way as he had started. And this was all because of Hans-Dieter Munt, the head of operations in the East German Secret Service. Munt's agents had killed all of the agents that Lemus had recruited. Lemus knew that he had failed, and it was the end of his career. The air hostess brought Lemus a whisky. She thought he was an interesting-looking man, with his grey hair and brown eyes in a handsome, bony face. She thought he was around 50, and this was about right. She thought he was single, which was half true. Long ago there had been a wife. Somewhere there were teenage children who were given money by their father, paid from a bank in London. He looked like a man who could make trouble, a man who was not quite a gentleman. The taxi stopped outside a grey government building in Cambridge Circus. Lemus nodded to the man on the reception desk at the circus, the British Overseas Intelligence Agency, and went to the head of the agency's office. Control shook hands with Lemus. "You must be tired," he said. "Please, sit down." Lemus sat down opposite a small electric fire. Control was smaller than Lemus remembered, but he still wore his old black jacket. Today it was cold, and Control was wearing a brown sweater under the jacket. Control behaved in the way that he always behaved, like a gentleman who knew he had to be polite. But Lemus knew Control was not really interested in him. Control took a packet of cigarettes from his desk and gave one to Lemus. Then he sat down opposite him. There was a pause, and then, finally, Lemus said, "Remek's dead." "Yes, I know," replied Control. "I suppose it was that woman who betrayed him." "I suppose so." Lemus did not know how Control knew about the woman. "Mont had him shot," Control added. "And how did you feel? When Remek was shot, I mean." Lemus shrugged. "I was bloody angry," he said. Control looked at him through half-closed eyes. "Didn't you feel more than that? Weren't you upset?" he asked, thoughtfully. "Yes, of course I was upset," said Lemus. "Did you like Remek?" asked Control. Lemus shrugged. "I suppose so," he said. "How did you spend the night after he was shot?" asked Control. "What did you do?" "Control," Lemus said angrily, "why are you asking me these questions?" Control continued to talk thoughtfully. "Remek was the last agent," he said. "There was the girl they shot outside a cinema, then the man in Dresden, and some others who were arrested. Then Paul, Virek, Salomon, and Lenser. And finally Remek. That is quite a lot of people. I wondered whether you'd had enough of your job." "What do you mean, enough?" asked Lemus. "I wondered whether you were tired, burnt out." Lemus was silent. Then at last he said, "You must decide." When Control spoke again, it was in the same thoughtful way. "In our jobs, we don't care about each other, do we? But we aren't like that, really, are we? I mean, we can't be out in the cold all the time. We have to come in from the cold. Do you see what I mean?" Lemus understood. He sat silently again. Then, when he spoke at last, he said, "Control, tell me, what do you want me to do?" "I want you to stay out in the cold a little longer," said Control. Lemus said nothing, so Control went on. "In our work, we do bad things so that ordinary people can sleep safely in their beds, don't we?" Lemus nodded. "And since the war, our methods have become quite similar to the methods of the other side," Control continued. "But of course we use these methods for the right reasons. We have to be as ruthless as them, even though our government's reasons are better than theirs." What is he saying? Thought Lemus. I wish he would say what he means. That is why, Control continued, I think we ought to try to get rid of Munt. Why? Asked Lemus. We've got no one left in Germany to protect. You just said this yourself. Riemek was the last one. Control looked at his hands for a while without speaking. Finally he said, That isn't quite true, but I don't think I need to tell you about it. Lemus shrugged. Tell me, said Control, are you tired of spying? If you are, we'll need to get a different person to do this job. What I am thinking about is not an ordinary job. We need to stop Munt's colleagues from trusting him. They have to believe that he is a traitor, that he is working for us, not them, so that they will get rid of him for us. Lemus sat quietly, so Control went on. What do you know about Munt? Lemus knew quite a lot about Munt. In his mind, he saw the photograph of the East German spy in the circus's files. He saw an unfriendly face and white blonde hair. He's 42, replied Lemus. He was born in Leipzig. He has quickly become a very important person in the East German Secret Service, and there are now two really important men, Fiedler and Munt. Munt's own colleagues hate him because he is so ruthless, and they are afraid of him. Control nodded, and then added to what Lemus had said. He's a killer. He was in this country 2 years ago, working for an East German company. We know that he killed 2 of his own agents. He nearly killed our agent, George Smiley, too. Munt isn't a real communist. He is just fighting a war, the Cold War. Like us, said Lemus. Control did not smile. George Smiley knows all about what happened here, he continued. He isn't working for us any more, but I think you should talk to him. Then, why don't you stay with me for the weekend? Thanks, I'd like to, said Lemus. We can talk more about things then, said Control. I think you might make a lot of money from the other side. You can keep all the money you make. Thanks, said Lemus. Of course, you must only do the job if you want to, if you're sure that you're not burned out, added Control. If you want to make trouble for Munt, I'll do it, said Lemus. Do you really feel that? Control asked. You mustn't think you have to say that, you know. After all, we all get burned out in the end in this job. We don't hate or love anyone or anything, but we don't want there to be any more pain. Lemus did not answer, and Control went on. Isn't that what you thought after they killed Karl Riemek? You didn't feel hate for Munt or love for Karl. You didn't feel anything. I was told that you walked all night through the streets of Berlin after they killed him. Is that right? Yes, said Lemus, then added, I'd like to get rid of Munt. Control nodded understandingly. Good. That's useful, he said. Now, if you meet any old friends in the circus, please Don't discuss this with them." "All right," said Lemus. "In fact," continued Control, "make them think that you're angry because we've behaved badly to you. You must begin to build a new life after today." No one was surprised when Lemus did not go back to Berlin. He had failed there, and of course he was too old now to work with spies abroad. He was given an easy job in the circus's office that made payments to people working abroad. However, everyone was surprised at how quickly Lemus went downhill. He was angry about the way the circus had behaved towards him and spoke bitterly about it. He became dishonest, borrowing money from colleagues and not paying it back. At first, colleagues were kind to him, understanding that he was having a bad time at the end of his career. But he was rude to them, and he did not shave, and his clothes were dirty. So they stopped going near him. He did not seem to care. He ate alone in the dining room, and people said that he had started to drink too much. Then he disappeared from the circus. He did not say goodbye to anyone. Soon everyone heard a story that someone had stolen money from the office where Lemus had worked. It had happened just before Lemus disappeared. People discussed it. Was Lemus a thief? For a week or two they wondered what had happened to him and where he had gone to. But soon he was forgotten. Chapter 3. Liz. Lemus lived in a small, dirty flat on the top floor of an old building. There was a grocer's shop on the ground floor. The flat had old brown furniture and a brown carpet with holes. Bare light bulbs hung from the ceilings. He needed a job. Mr. Pitt, who worked at the Labour Exchange, offered him one at the Bayswater Library, but Lemus did not want to work in a library, so he said no. Lemus thought he recognized Mr. Pitt. He was certain that he had seen him at the circus during the war, but the other man never mentioned it. Lemus spent a week working in a horrible factory, and a week trying to sell encyclopedias that nobody wanted. After he lost these jobs, he drank more and more at a pub near his flat. Soon people were used to seeing him there, and in the shops, and on the streets near where he lived. He was a grey, dirty man who did not shave. He never spoke to anyone. He was a man who had to look in all his pockets to find a bit of money. His neighbours felt sorry for him. Finally, Lemus took the job in the Bayswater Library. "The work will be easy for an intelligent man like you," said Mr. Pitt. Bayswater Library was an old building with lots of high bookcases in rows. On the morning Lemus arrived there, he found a young woman on a ladder near one of the bookcases. "I'm the new person," he said. "My name's Lemus." She climbed down and shook his hand. "I'm Elizabeth Gold. Call me Liz," the young woman said. "Have you done this kind of work before?" "No," he said. "Well, I'm checking all the books at the moment," Liz said. Liz was tall and bony with long legs. Her face was long, too, and she seemed to be both plain and beautiful at the same time. Lemus thought that she was 22 or 23. "You need to check that all the books are on the shelves," she said. "There are boxes of cards. When you've checked the number on the book, you tick it on the card. Why don't you look at the history books?" She took him to a different bookcase, where a shoebox of cards lay on the floor. She left him there and went back to her work. At 1 p.m. Lemus was hungry and asked Liz Gold what happened about lunch. "Oh," she replied, looking a bit embarrassed, "I bring sandwiches. There's no cafe near here. You can have some of mine if you like." Lemus shook his head. "No, thanks. I've got some shopping to do." When Lemus returned, he smelt of whiskey. He went back to his bookcase and started checking books again. At 6 p.m., Liz locked the library and they left. It was bitterly cold outside. "Have you got far to go?" asked Lemus. "No," said Liz. "My flat's about 20 minutes' walk away. What about you?" "It's not far," he said. "Good night." About 3 weeks after Lemus began to work at the library, Liz invited him to supper. At 5 p.m. she pretended that she had suddenly had the idea. She had already realized that he would not come if she invited him to come the next day or next week. Lemus did not seem very happy about visiting her, but he came. After that, there were many meals at Liz's flat. He always came when she asked him, but he never spoke much. Liz always suspected that there was something wrong with Lemus. "One day," she thought, "he is going to disappear, and I'm never going to see him again." She said to him one evening, "You must go when you want to go, Alec. I'll never follow you." His brown eyes looked at her for a moment. Then he said, "I'll tell you when I'm going to go." One evening she said, "Alec, what do you believe in? Don't laugh. Tell me." She waited, and at last he shrugged and said nothing. "But you must believe in something," she said. "Something like God. I know you do. Sometimes you look like you've got something special to do." She saw Lemus's smile and hated it. "Alec, don't smile," she said. "It's true." He stopped smiling. "Sorry, Liz, but you're wrong," he said. Liz knew he was getting angry, but she continued speaking. "You don't like conversations like this because you hate something, don't you?" she said. "You're like a man who is going to do something awful." The brown eyes looked at her, and, when he spoke, his voice frightened her. "If I were you," he said, "I wouldn't ask questions." And then he smiled gently. Liz hadn't seen him smile like that before. He was being kind to her now. "What do you believe in?" he asked. "Are you religious?" "No, of course not. I don't believe in God," she replied. "Then what do you believe in?" "I believe in... I'm a communist," she said quickly. He started to laugh. "Oh, Liz, no. You're not a bloody communist." "I am," she said, looking embarrassed. She was angry that he laughed, but she was also happy that he did not care very much. That night they became lovers. He left at 5 a.m. She could not understand why he seemed ashamed. She was not ashamed. Lemus walked down the empty street towards a park. It was foggy, so he did not see a man standing by the entrance to the park. By the time Lemus got to the entrance, the man had gone. Then, one day, about a week later, Lemus did not come in to work, and Liz was worried. The next morning she arrived early at the library, and by the end of the morning she knew he would never come back to his job. She had promised never to follow him, but he had promised to tell her when he was going away. Should she go and find him? At lunchtime she went to Lemus's flat. She went up the dark stairs and knocked on the door. No one came. She turned the handle, and the door opened. Quietly she went into the flat. It was bitterly cold and dark, but she could see a shape lying on the bed in the corner. She opened the curtains. Lemus was sweating, and his eyes were closed. He had not shaved for days, and Liz could see his dark beard against the white of his face. She was frightened, but she soon decided what to do. In the next few hours she ran to the chemist to buy medicine, bought soup and soft biscuits, and made tea. She held Lemus's head so he could drink and eat, whispering his name over and over again. At last he stopped sweating and relaxed, and he fell asleep. Then Liz cleaned the flat. When he woke, it was 8:30 p.m. "Alec, don't be cross with me. You're ill. You need me to look after you," she said. For 6 days she made him eat and helped him to wash and shave. Watching him get stronger after his illness, she thought she had never been so happy. He did not speak much, and once, when she asked him if he loved her, he said he did not believe in happy endings to stories. She often lay on the bed, with her head close to his. Then, on Friday evening when she came home, he was dressed, but he had not shaved. She was afraid, although she did not know why. She cooked their supper while Lemus sat on the bed without speaking. While they were eating, she suddenly cried out, "Alec, are you leaving?" He took her hands in his and kissed her in a way he had never done before. He spoke quietly, but she did not understand what he said. She only knew that it was the end. "Goodbye, Liz," he said. "Goodbye." And then he added, "Don't follow me. Not again." Liz nodded, and she went out into the bitter cold of the street outside. The next morning, Lemus went to the grocer's shop downstairs and ordered a number of things. When the man had put them in a bag, Lemus picked it up. "I'll pay for these later," he said. The grocer smiled politely and said, "I'm sorry, but you can't do that." "Why not?" asked Lemus angrily. The other customers in the shop looked at each other nervously. "I don't know you," replied the grocer. "Don't be stupid. I've been coming in here for 4 months," said Lemus. "You must pay for the groceries," said the grocer. "I don't know you, and I don't like you. Now get out of my shop." And he put out his hand to take the bag away from Lemus. The other customers were not certain what happened next. Did the grocer push Lemus or not? They saw that Lemus hit the grocer with his left hand while he was still holding the bag in his right hand. Some of the customers thought he hit the grocer twice, once on his neck with the side of his left hand, and then with his left elbow. But he moved so quickly that they were not really certain what he did. They saw the grocer fall over and lie completely still on the floor. There was evidence at his trial that Lemus had broken the bones in the grocer's jaw and in one of his cheeks. Lemus's lawyer did not disagree, and Lemus was sentenced to 3 months in prison. Some people learned about the trial in small articles in the newspapers.